Okay, so this is my 3 to 4 minute video on my final evaluation. I'll be evaluating what I've done and how useful each thing was. Starting off, I'll be evaluating the research I conducted. If I found what parts of this I found useful, which parts I have not. Starting off with the research I conducted on the Sixth the musical. For Sixth the musical, I conducted research on the background of the time period when the queens would have been alive at, so the Tudor times. This research turns out to not actually be that useful because we're modernizing the setting, bringing it up to a more modern time frame, whereas rather than in the Tudor times. I then later went and did more research onto the actual time period will be taking place in, which is more modern, 2000s era. I did research on the sort of outfits that they would wear and how what different styles will have, the different color schemes between each queen. That research was quite helpful because I was able to understand the colors that will be related to each person, and as well as what other ways we can incorporate the design areas into the set. Again, the research took me onto the color schemes, which was useful when designing the set because we could incorporate that into the set as we can incorporate that into the set, or we could ensure that the colors that we're using for the set don't clash with any of the colors of the characters. I also conducted a mood board of various different items that would relate with the set and the show as a whole. That was also greatly useful because the show wouldn't look right if it didn't have the correct amount of research, or when designing the set. It's just really useful to have the pictures relating to it just in one space. I also got the director's brief for Six and Hamilton, which was incredibly useful because the director's brief will tell us what the director wants from the show, such as in both shows they want gold to be a color, uh, as well as the sort of time periods and what if there's any stuff they want for the performance. Again, with Hamilton, I did research on the time period before we were told we would be bringing it forward into a more modern setting. So the research I did before we learned about that is not good because it's not related with the new stuff. Same with the research on the fashion, and at the time that's been changed up for a more modern look. The color palette research I conducted is useful because I'm able to get. I've got a palette of various different shades of gold, black, silver, and purple, all sort of rich royalty colors that can relate with the show. I also did another mood board, again, all relating to the Hamilton's set, which would be good for when designing the stage. My other research I conducted was on the set designer for Six and the set designer for Hamilton. These were useful because it was useful because we got to see how they were designing the set and stage, but apart from that, it wasn't that useful. And lastly, I did research on no, not lastly, and I've also done research on the color wheel and color theory, which is an important thing to understand, as you will get to understand complementary colors and what colors clash for various different scenes or sets. uh, I've done research on for Six, the musical, which I was focusing on for my PowerPoint. I've done research on punk slash grunge aesthetic, for which is the main focus of what we want the costumes and set to look like. So incorporating loads of different blacks and leather and metal and stuff all in the set, which was highly useful. I did research on high fashion, as the idea was mixing them both together, which was it was useful to understand, but it really didn't impact the actual final product that much. And lastly, we researched embroidery, which is linked with punk and grunge aesthetic quite closely, which it was a useful uh, piece of research that relates with one another and useful for these set design. Our group did work together well in some aspects. In others, we didn't work together as well. As the group was a group of four, but we're split off into two, one for Hamilton and one for Six. So we couldn't really collaborate on the each other's different area. But the work that we did do together did turn out well. Mainly showed through when we were actually building the set, such as working together to make the wooden planks. One person was hammering them, the other one was sorting them, and the other one was chiseling them, and then the last one was painting them. All sort of in a once you're done one, pass it along, grab the next, and so forth. Um, we did have all the equipment we needed to create the set from the get go. We had saws, hammers, chisels, all just paint brushes and painters, all in the workshop. So we didn't have to go out and buy anything apart from the wood needed to create the set. The construction and painting of the set went well. There were some mishaps, of course, such as paint dripping onto the pre-painted areas where it had to. But the issues that did arise were easy fixes. So any paint that got in the wrong place, we could just easily paint over, and we couldn't really go wrong with the planks. We were just trying to make them look battered and old. So some look more battered than the others, which looks more realistic than a more refined look. The finalized set works well with what we're trying to do. We're trying to make it look modern, yet also Tudor time. So for the walls, we created walls with the Tudor framing, but we dry brushed gold over the top, and it just highlights the rough patches on the on the wall, as well as looking old and new at the same time. It fits in with what the brief wanted, with the gold paint highlighting aspects, the modern setting, but with aspects of the Tudor time. Of course, something that didn't actually go to plan, though, were the stained glass windows, because we had to draw them all out, but the first time we drew them out, we didn't plan out where everything was going, so the drawings didn't look right at all. But we later went back over and we did that using reference by printing out reference images and putting them underneath the perspex to draw over the top, which was then a way to get it done. Unfortunately, I was unable to help during free periods and lunch times because of various different reasons, such as other sessions with other teachers. But the which made the set be built longer, but still within the time frame. We also had there was also a lack of equipment actually. We only had about 5 working drills between the whole class trying to build a set, but we were able to get that to work by sharing it around when if other people need and bringing it back and seeing which sets need it the most and then going about like that. Some set stuff that wasn't completed to a high standard actually. There was a few. There was the completely painted black flats for Hamilton. Those unfortunately did get a bit scratched up from moving them around and the people placing other flats on top. We were able to paint over the scratches, but you can still sort of tell that they've been scratched up a bit, which isn't what we wanted at all. That is my final evaluation. I hope this was informative.